My name is JARI HOLLAND BUCK, and I lost my husband to a hospital-acquired infection. His body did not die, but as a result of contracting it in the first hospital out of 4 that we were in, his left frontal lobe was destroyed, and that destroyed his impulse control and his personality. So the man who I brought to the hospital was very different than the man who came home from the hospital. It pains me deeply because I will never know until my dying day whether out of my ignorance I was the one who was responsible for introducing MRSA into his body. Now, one of the things that's become very helpful in many healthcare settings is the use of a purple band to indicate do not resuscitate. It's not national, but we are hoping to get it into a national movement, and what we don't want to see is someone who selects a purple band as a result of a hospital-acquired infection. We don't want that to be the case. This care team that you're looking at here, you're in this care team somewhere. Whether you're the patient and horizontal, you have to care for yourself, or whether you're the advocate or the family member. All of us have a role to play. And the outcome that we all seek is essentially the same thing. We all want to hang the Get Well Soon banner out in front of our patient and to take that patient home in a vertical and healthy fashion. Unfortunately, we can't achieve this as long as we are dealing with a hospital-acquired infection that stays with us virtually for the rest of our life. That becomes a problem in terms of recovery. So whatever role we're playing, it's very important that we're proactive and that we step up to the plate, because if we don't, we run the risk of having to suffer the consequences of a long-term illness as a result of a hospital-acquired infection. Now, here's what we know in general. The most important things on this whole slide about what we know in general, and this is where I'm going to have to try and go fast, is that the more sick we are, the more susceptible we are. And additionally, this is a 2-part issue. It's a compliance issue about the length of time, and it's also an effectiveness issue. So what we know specifically about the 2 primary infections we're dealing with are Clostridium difficile responds best to soap and water, and MRSA responds best to alcohol. What that means as a result is that we have to do different things. If C. diff responds best to 20 seconds of vigorous rubbing and MRSA responds best to alcohol, how many do most healthcare practitioners do? 1 or 2? Most of them do 1. What I'm suggesting they do is both in that order and follow it up with nitrile gloves if you really want to keep your patients free as much as you possibly can from hospital-acquired infections. Now, the hard part is how do we ask this? And the important part on this slide is the minute that the healthcare worker touches the bed without practicing all 3 of these, it's over. If there was any hospital-acquired infection on them or near them, it's over. Your patient is now compromised. So not only are we asking as advocates and patients, but there are also additional steps that we can take that are detailed on here and require us to take these actions every time one of these issues is present. What does the patient end up having to do? Trying to keep themselves free from hospital-acquired infections as well by taking actions such as making sure you don't put dirty socks into a bed, and all of these other issues that are identified here. So, if we are not the patient, the types of things that we can do are here, and mostly the 3-step procedure is the best thing we can do, but these are additional activities that we can take, if I can get the slide to move, that will assist us in preventing hospital-acquired infections. And I'm trying. It's not moving. I'm pushing the button. Okay. In addition to that, some of the things that are very natural to us, like sitting on the bed, hugging our patient, these are all things, bringing in plants, that are not advisable because they increase the likelihood of exposure, especially in cases where the patient is particularly compromised. And I continue to press the button, and it continues to not move. So, in addition to that, you have lots of activities you can take, some of which I've detailed here, many of which I'm willing to provide to you either in brochure form or as a recipient of this PowerPoint at the end. If you visit a patient in the hospital, what's really important to recognize is the mere visitation and entry into the room exposes you to the possibility of acquiring a hospital-acquired infection as well. So these are the types of things that you need to do. Women are notorious for taking their purses in, putting them on the floor. What do you think you ought to do when you get home? Sanitize them. Because otherwise you run the risk of carrying that into a house, in particular where there's pets or a compromised patient. So the important thing to remember here is the more that you can do of all of these activities, the better off you and your patient will be in terms of exposure to HIAs. Bottom line, however, if you can only do one thing, then take these 3 steps because they provide us the greatest possible preventative exposure to hospital-acquired infections, specifically to MRSA and Clostridium difficile. Thank you.